had a website, but it wasn't, it was almost like a vanity project back then. Now it is like an entrance fee to have a business.
Good. Hey, I wanted to let you know that the Google guarantee, the Google ads, man, I'm getting 12 to 16 calls a week.
My goal is at least do 10 to 15 more years, grow it up, sell it for 40, 50 million, maybe more.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Titan Talks. My name is Jonathan Stern. I'm an engineer at Topline Pro, but once a week, I have the honor of sitting down with successful home service entrepreneurs to discuss their journeys to success. Today is August 14th, 2023, and my guest is Conor Farrell. Conor is the owner of Home Hardening Solutions, a leading home hardening company in Grass Valley, California, just northeast of Sacramento. For those who don't know, home hardening is essentially fire and natural disaster protection. So in terms of specific services, think land clearing and grinding, roofing, construction, and in general, making the home more resistant to fires. As we're coming up on the meat of fire season in California, there's hardly a better time to hear about Conor's business. So Conor, thank you so much for taking the time. And welcome to the show.
Jonathan, thanks a bunch for having me. Appreciate it.
I want to start with an origin story. Tell us all, how'd you get started in home hardening?
So I started with as a general building contractor here in Nevada County for the last 22 years. Building homes and running equipment. We're also a general engineering contractor. And a lot of our calls and for service have become increasingly towards land clearing, brushing, and to complete these lists of tasks that were given to people by their insurance companies in order to continue being insured and this kind of thing. And I was noticing that there are a lot of folks out there that are new to the area or even have been around here for a long time, but don't know who to call, and they need a tree cut down, and they need a roof put on, and they need some other things done, and they're having to call multiple contractors, and they're having a hard time finding people to show up and this kind of thing. I thought, well, it makes sense to start a company that was just home hardening, so we do all of the aspects of of getting these things done and working for real estate agents and working for for homeowners who need these insurance lists completed. It just made sense, and it kind of makes a one-stop call for anybody who needs these services. So that was what started it. That was the concept, and then.
And when was this, Conor? How many years ago did you?
This was just a year and a half ago when we started.
Okay. Wow.
We spun off of our original general and engineering company and added a roofing license and started this new company, Home Hardening Solutions.
What gave you the confidence that it was the right time to go off on your own and do this? Was it climate in California? Was it now you have the experience to go off and do something like this? Was the demand there?
Yeah, so the experience I already had, and I've got some great experienced folks working for me. So that part we were good with. The thing that really pushed us is just really seeing the need come up and really seeing so many of our customers coming to us saying, "Hey, can you do this tree removal and this brush removal, and can you clear this land back, and can you do these things?" And generally we're a building company, but we do a lot of clearing in order to build anyway. Oftentimes we'll come to a lot that's completely covered in trees and brush, and we've got to clear it and open it up. So we've got plenty of experience doing that kind of stuff. But so that was kind of what, I think it was the increased calls in that direction that really kind of gave us the idea that, hey, this is a needed service, and I think all we need to do is get our name out there and let people know what we do, and we should be in good shape. So
it sounds like you had a few customers baked in just by virtue of having some presence in California before, A bunch of customers need services specifically related to home hardening, but I imagine as well that getting the business off the ground in the early days was not all straightforward. Tell us about a few things you did in the early days to survive and thrive.
Well, what was nice about it is that because we still have the general building company, we were able to kind of just ease our way into home hardening side of it. So it wasn't like, oh no, we haven't got our name out there enough and we don't have any work, or we're failure to launch. We were able to kind of run both companies. So as far as things that, it's basically just a function of connecting with different wholesale houses and suppliers, and making these different connections with these other people who are kind of more specialized in home hardening, rather than us being more generalized. And so we needed to connect with specialized suppliers. So we need suppliers in multiple categories because of our desire to kind of do these essentially 4 different divisions of the company. So roofing, and we need roofing suppliers and this kind of thing. So that was a big part of our early part, was just making these connections and connecting with these folks that we can get, draw down supplies and not have to worry about taking on a job and not being able to get what we need.
Were there any mistakes that you made in the early days?
I don't think I could point to anything specific that I would do different. I mean, I think that having the experience of being a contractor, I owned 2 other companies prior to this one, 2 other contracting companies, so I kind of knew what I wanted to do.
And what were those? What were those, Connor?
So one of them is CSF Construction, and the other one is Old Town Roofing. So I've got a C39 roofing license as well. And so this one was just a kind of combining the 2 together, and so we put the C39 onto this company now, and also the General A and General B engineering and building contracting. And so once we put all that together, I pretty much had an idea of how I wanted to run it, and I would say that overall it's been pretty smooth getting started. And we've kind of gotten quite a bit of attention just on people seeing it and going, wow, this is a great idea, and this is a great service that's really needed around here, this kind of thing. And so it's really taken off well. I mean, are there small things? I guess there are small things that we could have done different here and there, but overall it was pretty seamless transitioning into it.
So no huge mistakes, demand built in from the last thing you were doing. I am curious, how did you figure out pricing?
Pricing sort of built in, but also I know I've been using other subcontractors for many years, so I have a pretty good idea of where pricing should be for these different, and again, I mean, coming in as a roofing contractor with another business, it's easy for me to know how to price roofing for this business, or gutters, or gutter topper, downspouts, the different various those things, and or you go to concrete or any other things that we do, land clearing, and those prices are ones that I've been familiar with over the years, and watched them kind of grow and change. So wasn't too hard to figure that out.
Let's turn then to business today. You said 4 divisions. Could you be more specific about what each division is and sort of how business operates overall?
Yeah, for sure. I can elaborate on that. So we've got the 4 divisions we've got are roofing, which I've mentioned a few times. We've got a concrete / hardscaping division, a construction division, and a land clearing division. Each division's got a person on top of it, a foreman that runs that division, that keeps track of what's going on there. So for the roofing division, it's pretty typical roofing. We do tear offs, we do replacements, we do new roofs, seamless gutters, gutter toppers. The gutter toppers are important, they keep the leaves out of the gutter, so that you don't get a big buildup of leaves in the gutter and wind up letting a fire ignite there. Each of these 4 divisions can run independently. So if one, let's say we're just out doing roofs, but all of a sudden we get a job that needs a roof and some tree removal. Well, we can bring 2 divisions into that. So the other division's tree removal. So the guy that heads that division is also a California state certified defensible space inspector. So he understands exactly how to go out to the property and decide, and help the homeowner decide, which trees should be removed, whether or not they're suppressed, or the canopy should be spread out, or, if you want to get rid of things in between structures, so you don't wind up with structure to structure ignition, these kind of things. He knows how to be sure to get that stuff out of there, and help the homeowner come up with a plan. Then if we're removing, let's say, vegetation from right up against a house, because the new recommendation is no vegetation within 5 feet, we could bring in our hardscaping crew, and those guys can do a patio if you want, concrete, or some kind of something to make it nice, so you're not just ripping out all your bushes and you just got dirt sitting there next to your house. We can do flagstone, we can do pavers, we can do retaining walls, these kind of things. And the other division is the construction division. And so with the construction division, we'll do anything that's the outside of the house. So decks, siding, windows, soffits. A lot of times the insurance companies are asking for the soffits to be enclosed now. And venting. So a lot of times people have vents that are no longer adequate, or don't meet today's standards, the bigger holes in their vents and these sort of things. I would say that, there's value to all of these things beyond the fire as well. With the gutter topper, for example, now you're not having to clean leaves out of your gutter, and it's dangerous and this kind of thing. With like the vents, for example, we're going from the bigger 1/4-inch holes down to these smaller holes that are 1/8 inch or smaller in some cases. So they're keeping bees out of people's attics and things like this. So they're added values, with decks. We're putting steel frame decks on now. So it's not just that it's fire safe, but it's also long lasting. So you're not having to build a deck in another 15, 20 years because of, lumber that's subpar to what, lumber used to be once upon a time, and this sort of thing. So decks are lasting, many, many years longer. We're putting screen on deck. So if a person has a deck that's, let's say, 5, 10 years old and it's not ready for replacement, we'll put a screen around it, like a mesh, a fire resistant mesh, or a ember resistant mesh. So a lot of different aspects there, but each run by their own foreman who knows and understands that division very well. The clearing one I didn't really go into too much, but we've got equipment. So we've got excavators, we've got masticators that are installed in the excavators. We can grind brush, we can cut and chip depending on the size of the job. We've even got some larger horizontal grinders, so we can feed enormous amounts of brush into these grinders with excavators and grind up major. So if we're doing whole neighborhoods, or even like cleaning up logging slash, or clean up after a logging job, or some major job like that, we have the ability to do that, all the way down to taking out a few trees and just chipping up the brush with just a regular old brush chipper. So the clearing division is got quite a bit going for them, and chainsaws and pole saws, and we can kind of come in and make your place look like a park. So that's pretty nice.
I'm not gonna lie, it sounds like a massive operation. 4 divisions, 1 foreman at the top of each. How many people are in each division, other than the foreman? What is the structure within?
Yeah, it varies. So each one's got, some people underneath, and so, some laborers, and we do share some labor. So that's one thing that's nice, is we're able to Yeah, so we're able to move guys around. So a guy might be helping tear off a roof today, and he might be feeding a chipper tomorrow. As far as our labor pool, and that's really nice because it helps keep the guys always busy on something, and it also helps us not have to have a huge labor pool for each division. So it really varies on how many folks are underneath. I mean, it could literally vary day to day.
How does licensing or training work? How many jobs are there just within your company that require some sort of outside education?
I would say that so several of the folks that are working for me that are foremen of these divisions are actually licensed contractors themselves, or licensed through, in some way through the state for doing some of the things they do, like the defensible space inspector and these sort of things. So there's that. We don't have too much. I mean, there are things like with the roofing, there are certain classes that need to be taken in terms of being able to install properly to keep the warranties, keep the manufacturer happy, so we can make sure that they're able to warranty our work and this sort of thing. But a lot of it is, trained on the job training. The guys will learn from these folks who have really mastered their own division. So yeah, it's the folks underneath the concrete division are learning from the foreman who's been doing concrete for many, many years, and he'll show them how to do what he wants them to do. So,
How long do most projects take? Is it a few days, many weeks, months? And how
so often
many
we
are
do
you working on at a time?
Yeah, sometimes 4 or 5 projects at a time, is usually what we're on now. But we'll have projects that last from a day or two up to 3 months, that kind of thing. It just depends on the situation. I mean, we've got a house going for right now, for example. It needs a roof, it needs siding, it needs windows, but doesn't need any brush clearing or anything like that. So the clearing crew is off doing something different, and the only people there is construction and roofing. And so it just depends on how many aspects are being pulled together, and exactly what needs to be done for each property. It's really nice because we can go and really kind of customize a plan for a person's property and for their budget, for that matter. And so sometimes we've revisited properties a couple of times or a few times over a year or so's time frame, and come back as they have more need or as they have more money, more budget to do it.
What does that process look like? Is there a reevaluation? Does the homeowner get back in touch? Do you get back in touch with the homeowner? How does that work?
The homeowner will get back in touch with us,
Okay.
generally speaking, unless we have a plan, like, hey, we're going to do this, and we'll come back in the spring to do that part because it's not appropriate to do now, or this kind of thing. Sometimes people will need a roof, but it's the middle of the winter, and but they need some other things done, some clearing and this kind of thing, and then we'll come back and do the roof in May or something like that for them.
How cyclical is the home hardening business? I imagine, as you just said, certain things have to happen at certain times. How do you balance that, and what does it look like in the winter versus the summer?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, in the winter here in Northern California, we do have a lot of days when we can come and take off a roof and put a new one on without the weather affecting us. We have days when we can, it's really great to run equipment in the winter, except for if it's really wet. So if it's too wet, we can't get out there with our excavators and this sort of thing and try to masticate or anything like that. But if it's just been raining and kind of soaked in, and now the weather's good, and we can get out there without messing up the land, it's a great time to work because we're not having to use fire hoses and these kind of things in order to keep from starting fires, because the last thing we want to do is start a fire as a fire prevention company.
Yeah,
So,
I can imagine.
but wintertime is a great time to get out and do a lot of certain things. Summertime has its own challenges. Yeah, the weather's great, but it's hot or it's smoky, or we've got to worry about hitting the rock and sparking a fire. So
Yeah.
it adds a little bit of challenge in terms of, carrying water around with us and that sort of thing. But so, yeah, so we just kind of roll with the punches, sort of, when that happens. If it's appropriate for one crew to go in and not the other, then that's okay. I mean, if it's freezing, we can't pour concrete. If there's just certain things we can't do. But that's another reason why it's nice to have this 4-division system, because it's like, well, okay, that division doesn't have to come right now. They can come back when it's more appropriate for them. And so, and homeowners seem to be quite understanding of that. They realize, hey, we can't bring in an excavator. We're going to make a mud pit in your yard, or we can't pour concrete because it's going to freeze, or we can't tear off your roof because it's going to rain, and these sort of things. So, I think it works pretty well. Yeah.
Let's turn to jobs on the schedule. If you're open to sharing, would love to hear how many jobs do you have, and how'd you get those jobs?
So that's a little tough because I don't have that information right in front of me. And some are, it would be hard to, I'd have to count it up, and because some are just roofing. So we'll have just, however many roofs we have lined up, I don't even know. And this kind of thing. So how many jobs?
You're talking dozens or
Yeah, certainly
Okay.
dozens of jobs lined up. How we get them? We get them from multiple sources, I guess. So we will get them from our website. We'll get them from advertisement that we've put out. But most of the lion's share of the work we get is repeat customers and word of mouth. So our goal is to do good work and put out a good product, do right by the customer, and come back to them or come back to anyone who they recommend us to. And so that's really where we get the lion's share of our work is just from folks that are happy with what we did for them and spread that word. And so, yeah, but as far as how many jobs, I mean, we've got, it's interesting because we've got some jobs that are kind of a mix of a lot of things, and we've got other jobs that are just one-off. We're just over here pouring concrete for these people, or putting in some kind of a patio or something over here, but other ones where they want the whole shebang, as it were. So we're off doing all kinds of stuff for some folks. But yeah, we're booked out. I'd say it's an interesting thing because we've got work through, the whole year and into next year, but we can still take some stuff on because we can fit in certain projects for a certain division. Let's say somebody comes along and says, hey, I need this clearing done. Well, we're not going on a clearing job until, we have a gap in between one job and another where we can fit them into that gap. So it works out pretty well that we're able to kind of keep the balance of plenty of work to do, but not all of it has to be done today. So we can get out and do other stuff if need be.
Given that most of your work comes through word of mouth, repeat customers, walk me through the decision to get a website.
So with this company, so Home Hardening, we decided that because it was such a new concept, not so much the concept is new, but the terminology is new.
Is it? Okay. When did
yeah.
it come along?
Well, it seems like in the last year or two, it's kind of been trickling down. So you've been hearing the local governments talk about home hardening. You've been hearing the fire departments talk about home hardening. It's trickling down to real estate agents and insurance companies and this sort of thing. And the general public hasn't really, many people say, what's home hardening? What's that mean? And so we thought, well, a website would make sense. You know, if we put together a website, it could really explain it and really break it down for people, and they could see, okay, now we understand. And the good side of calling our company Home Hardening Solutions is that as people do start to hear and understand what home hardening is, then we start to get clicks and calls because they Google home hardening and we pop up. So that's helpful, and it helps us kind of get the word out to more folks and show them what we're about.
You mentioned an advertisement that you have running. Is that a Google advertisement, Facebook? Is it a physical marketing?
So we've got a Facebook ad out. We sometimes use our local newspaper. We on Wednesday night will be on the local news.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the local news came and found us actually through our website because of our name, and came out and interviewed us on one of our jobs. And by local, I mean the
Places,
news
Connor,
out of-
that's
out of- yeah,
and so you're going on the local news where? Sacramento or?
Sacramento, yeah. So
okay.
the KCRA 3 meteorologist Tamara Berg came out and interviewed us on one of our projects, and they took some drone footage and a bunch of footage to show. So that's going to be a good piece there. And then we've got some physical stuff, yard signs and this sort of thing. Obviously our shirts, our business cards, and that kind of stuff. But mostly our goal is to get the word out there, let people know what we do, and then really try to do right by them so they come back and they send their friends. And that's where we like to really get our work, satisfied customers.
Digging into the future of Home Hardening Solutions, curious, where do you see the business in 5 years or in 10?
So that's interesting. So I've been talking about that with, actually we just had a meeting this morning, an office meeting, and we were talking about it, and I don't really desire to get huge. I don't know that I want to be a very big company. I'd rather be a quality company. And so you wrestle with this. Do you be available to your customers and maybe sacrifice some quality, or do you keep your quality high and sacrifice some availability? With the labor market the way it is today, and the folks out there that are qualified to do the things that we do, we or the lack of folks that are qualified to do what we do, we don't see ourselves getting any bigger than we can keep the quality up, I guess. Let's put it that way. We have, thought about the possibility of eventually, 5-10 years down the road, yeah, maybe we do go ahead and open other branches. Maybe we do go ahead and even franchise. But that's kind of a long-term, maybe not thing. We're not quite sure. What we know is quality comes first. Putting out a good product comes first. And if that means that we have to back up work for a year, then that's what we have to do in order to make sure that we do things right. Now, on the other side of that, many of our customers can't wait a year. They're holding in their hand a honeydew list from their insurance company that says you're dropped, in June if you don't get this done. And so oftentimes we have to adjust our schedule and make sure that we get there and get these things done for folks sooner. So.
A couple things out of that. Number one, why is it that you see the size of Home Hardening Solutions at odds with the larger the company becomes, the lower the quality? Why are those necessarily at odds? At least,
well, you see this with these companies that get larger, and you see that there's less ability to really kind of control the quality from an upper management standpoint, I guess. So as long as we're able to train upper management folks at enough of a pace that we can go ahead and bring on helpers and be able to train them, and I don't want to get to the point where we've got folks that are qualified to do the work, but they're taking so much of their time kind of steering somebody who's not.
Sure.
I would rather have the person who's qualified doing the work.
Yep.
So that's where we're at. Not to say that we can't train more people, but we're not in a great big hurry to train and blow up and get so big that we kind of, get ahead of our skis, I guess.
So it tends to be a labor shortage or constraint that necessitates that the business stays small if quality is the top priority.
I believe so. I believe so. I mean, I've just seen it too many times with companies as they grow and their quality starts to fall off, and then their whole goal is to go out and try to find lots of work to keep feeding the machine, but the goal is not to do right by the customer. And for us, the number one goal is do right by the customer, and beyond that, we'll grow it at whatever pace we can to keep that number one thing in mind.
I should have asked this earlier, but I'm curious. Proportion of overall jobs that you have, as a proportion of overall jobs, how many are the result of an insurance company saying you need to do this, that, and this other thing, and how many are the result of the homeowner just wanting to make their home more fire resistant?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say that right now, 80-20. I'd say 80% is the homeowner initiates it. 20% is they're initiating it because the insurance company has come to them with a list.
Okay, so mostly the homeowner just wants to toughen up the home.
Yep. Many homeowners are doing it on their own now. And that ebbs and flows. And of course, it matters if there's a big fire nearby or there's a big fire in the news. People start to go, oh, hey, we should get this done. But oftentimes it's the homeowner, and then not only that, but it's the neighbor, and then it's the neighborhood, and then it's, and a lot of times we'll wind up sticking around an area for quite a while and just kind of moving on down the block, and people come out and say, hey, we see what you're doing. Can you come do that for us? And so that happens quite a bit for us.
At Titan Talks, we like to close with a rapid fire round. Are you ready?
All right, let's go.
What is your goal? Why are you doing all this?
I'm doing this just I mean, I grew up here. I was born and raised here, and I see fires are getting fiercer and fiercer as years go by, and I'd really like to see us, I'd like to educate the public out here and really like to see us harden the area, not just one home, but I'd really like to get the whole area ready for, or at least be a part of that. Not that I can do it myself, but I'd like to be a part of getting the area ready.
Let's take a home hardening service professional who's just starting out, don't have quite the experience that you have. What advice would you offer them?
Oh, that's a pretty easy one. I would say make sure you know what you're doing and keep your quality up. Don't go out there and do bad work for somebody. And I think that's the most important thing, is putting out a good product.
It sounds like things are going well. What would you say is your biggest challenge?
Biggest challenge, I guess, is scheduling. There's a little bit of, it's a little bit tough just kind of keeping all these plates in the air. And especially scheduling my own time, because I'm often needed here or there to troubleshoot this or that, or even to help on jobs. I'll still get out and work in the field. So in order for me to kind of, maybe I need a helicopter. I don't know, but to be a few places at once, so the scheduling is right now the tougher part, but I think we'll get that under control too.
And to close, what's been your proudest moment at the helm of Home Hardening Solutions?
I mean, I guess I would have to say it was, I guess I would have to say it was a TV interview so far. I mean, I thought that was pretty nice culmination of our efforts and our ideas and deciding to name the company what we named it. And that was what, got them looking at us. And so it kind of seemed like all of our stuff came together and made sense. And there we were on the news. So.
Well, congratulations again. We'll be sure to include a link in the show notes. Conor Farrell, thank you so much for being a part of Titan Talks.
Jonathan, thanks a bunch. I sure appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.